Welcome to Skip the Queue, a podcast for people working in or working with visitor attractions. I'm your host, Kelly Molson. Each episode, I speak with industry experts from the attractions world. These chats are fun, informative, and hopefully always interesting. In today's episode, I speak with Hannah Monteverde, Top Banana, aka Park Manager at BeWILDerwood in Cheshire. We discuss how the pandemic impacted the opening of BeWILDerwood Cheshire and all of the learnings that have come from that happening. If you like what you hear, you can subscribe on all the usual channels by searching Skip the Queue. Hannah, thank you for coming on the podcast today. I'm really excited to have you on.
Thank you. I am excited to be here.
Good. I know how busy you've been the last couple of weeks as well, which we'll get to in a minute. So I am really grateful of the time that you've been able to give us today. As ever, though, we are going to start the podcast with our icebreaker questions. So Hannah and I had a little chat a few weeks ago, a little pre-podcast interview chat, just to kind of see, you know, what we could talk about and how we got on. And we discovered that we're both big fans of kind of like rising up other women and girl power and all that shiz. So I want to know, who is your favourite Spice Girl and why?
Oh, do you know what? I'm going to throw a curveball right at the beginning.
Is this going to be an unpopular opinion?
Well, it's not my unpopular opinion, but it may well be. I wasn't a Spice Girls girl. It was all about Bewitched for me, I'm afraid. But I think, okay, let me think about the Spice Girls. I think if I had to pick a favourite, it's got to be Sporty Spice, I think.
Yeah, she rocks.
Yeah.
She rocks. All right, okay.
Sorry
can I
about
just? No, that's okay. But I want to delve a little bit deeper into the whole Bewitched. What was it about Bewitched? Was it the outfits? Was it the Irish dancing?
I don't know. I think it was a bit of both. You know that I can't remember the name of their first album, but it had that little orange cover. It must have probably been about, I don't know, it's probably far too old to admit, probably about 11. And you know, they're all jumping on the cover and looking like they're having the best time. I wanted to be one of them.
If it came on the radio now, though, I would definitely get up and dance, wouldn't you?
Yeah, and you know all the words, of course.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right, I'll let you off the Spice Girls just because of that little glorious nugget of information. What is top of your bucket list?
Oh, I think a trip around Iceland in a camper van.
Oh, yeah.
We always said we were going to go to Iceland on honeymoon, and we got married about nearly 5 years ago now, and somehow we've still not managed to do that. So I think that, or New Zealand, I think, but like really back to basics, nothing fancy, no fancy hotels or anything, just being able to drive where you want and park up where you want and enjoy that. I think
that whole idea of just opening your camper van doors and being in the middle of nowhere, that sounds incredibly enticing right now, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, right now.
Okay. And last one, what's your favorite movie quote?
Oh no, this is one of the ones that we said. If you ask me this question, I will not have an answer, because the only thing I can think of is I'll be back from Terminator, and I've never even seen that film. So
I mean, I'll take that as your favorite movie quote despite you never watching it, if that's fine.
Oh no, it couldn't have gone worse. My husband said in the car, he said, oh, do you know any quotes from Chalet Girl? Because that's your favourite film, isn't it? And I mean, if you've not seen Chalet Girl, then that's the kind of worms to open up. But I can't even remember any quotes from that. So
oh gosh, I mean, sorry listeners, Hannah, she even tried to prep for the icebreaker question, so you know, I just caught her out with a curveball there. All right, let's park that then. What's your unpopular opinion?
Okay, now this, if any of my colleagues ever listen to this podcast, which I'm undecided whether I'm going to tell them about or not, this is not going to go down very well with them. Houseplants are overrated. I just can't get behind a houseplant. Is
it because you can't keep them alive?
Partly, I think. I think if I tried, I could keep them alive. But I think I'd much prefer, like, you know, if someone buys you flowers, they're kind of bright, they last for a few weeks if you're lucky, and then they're done. But a house, as you say, like a houseplant, you've got to look after it, and most of the time, and someone was telling me the other day, actually, I think, you know, when you buy like a nice peace lily or something and it's got lovely flowers, it only flowers because they put loads of hormones in it, and that before you buy it, so you think, oh, that looks lovely, and then we've got a peace lily which sat at home, which we've had for years, which we can't kill no matter how hard we try, but it's never flowered again, so it's just just leaves.
Oh, I didn't know that. I don't think I've ever had a peace lily. I 100% would have killed it, because the reason that you can see these paint samples here is because this mantelpiece was full of houseplants, which I then promptly killed every single one of to hide them. So I think I'm kind of with you on that. I think faux houseplants all the way.
Maybe that's the way to go. Yeah, we recently moved, and my sister, she was really kind, and she sent us a house plant from Norwich, where she lives, that came in the post, and that was really exciting, because sending plants in the post. But I have to say, I can probably count on my hand the amount of times I've watered it since we've had it, so that's not going to last very long. But yeah, house plants are overrated.
Good.
Sorry, everybody.
I like that. Good unpopular opinion. We've not had that one on either, so it's a fresh take on it. Right. Okay, let's get into our questions. Hannah, how did you get to be top banana, aka park manager at BeWILDerwood in Cheshire? Tell us about your career.
Yeah, so I don't tell this story that often, to be honest, but I quite often tell this story as if it's kind of like an unorthodox story and it's unique. But actually, I think when I was thinking about this in prep, it's probably fairly common within the industry. My career within the attractions industry sits with BeWILDerwood and BeWILDerwood alone. So when I graduated uni in 2011, I think I started working at BeWILDerwood, just kind of picking up seasonal work because I needed something to tide me over until I found a real proper job. So I did that for a couple of years, and then I went and I trained to become a teacher. That was going to be my proper serious job. I was going to have a career and I was going to be a teacher. That lasted about 6 months before I kind of unceremoniously dumped that. It didn't work out well for my mental health, and there are some things that are far more important, and I knew that I enjoyed working at BeWILDerwood. So I think it was kind of like March 2014, I went groveling back to the ops manager at the time, and I was kind of like, look, this hasn't worked out. Have you got any seasonal work going? And they had me back, thankfully. And I came back and I started working seasonally again, and I loved it, and I didn't really want to leave. And I was at a bit of a point where I was kind of like, well, I might as well do what makes me happy. And I guess the rest of it is almost, in a sense, it's a series of happy accidents and I guess being in the right place at the right time. I was working front of house, letting people into the park, making sure that everyone was having fun, having the best day ever. And then I kind of progressed from that into a site supervisor role. So that's what we call our duty managers. So kind of taking care of the site on a day-to-day basis, making sure that all our visitors are happy, dealing with any queries, any issues, all that kind of stuff. And then from there, I kind of moved upwards into the operations manager position. I spent quite a few years doing that and loving that, actually. It's where I kind of first started like managing staff and things. And we've got quite a big team of seasonal staff. This was in Northfolk at the time. So it was kind of managing up to about 100 people in a season, which was great fun. And I was really used to enjoy it. I then somehow, luckiest catch of all, I think I managed to land a promotion to the deputy general manager whilst I was on maternity leave. Not really sure how that happened, but
nice work.
Yeah, go and have a baby and then come back as a deputy general manager, which was great. And it was then, so that must have been about 2018. It was then when the talk of Cheshire kind of first started to become a thing and started to become something that we could almost believe in. It had been kind of going around the houses for a little while, and there'd been rumours about Cheshire, and we always knew that we wanted to open a second park. And kind of by that point, it was at a point where it was becoming real, and things were getting put in the ground, and we got planning permission, and we could really believe that it was going to happen. So I remember I was having chats with Ben, our general manager, kind of around that time, and he was sort of saying, if that's where you want your career to go, if that's something you want to do, then have a think about it. Maybe if you try this deputy general management position for a year, we'll see how it goes. We'll give you the opportunity to have a crack at running a park for a year, which was fantastic. Like, it was the most amazing opportunity. I had his support literally right there, but he allowed me to kind of do my own thing and run the park. And then moving on from there, kind of that in essence, as I said, was my trial run for a year. Obviously didn't do too bad a job because they asked if we wanted to come up to Cheshire and run the park here, which of course I would have been mad to say no. So we moved up here December 2019. Yeah, December 2019. And obviously, I'm sure we'll talk in a bit about the curveballs that last year and things have thrown at us. But the plan was to move up here in December 2019, work with Ben to set up the park operationally. and then moving forwards kind of run the park as top banana / park manager. So yeah, that's kind of me. But and we often say that I'm kind of the poster girl for that within BeWILDerwood. So that I'm the one that started out as part of the Twiggle team, as part of our seasonal staff, and then have worked my way up through the company, which is lovely. And it's everyone. No, I don't really want to be a poster girl, but what I think is even lovelier with BeWILDerwood and with the company is that that's not unique. It's not just me as said poster girl who's done that. So whilst there aren't lots of people running BeWILDerwoods around the country, because we've only got 2, there are lots of people, especially in Norfolk, in management positions who have started out as part of the Twiggle team and then have kind of made their way up through the company. So our marketing manager, she was part of the Twiggle team, our operations manager in Norfolk now, and the assistant operations manager, they've all kind of come from working within the Twiggle team, which is something that I think is so important. And it's really important, I think, for me as well, setting up Cheshire and setting up the ops team and things here, is that we champion that, giving people the opportunities to grow and to develop. And I know, speaking about me, and from my experience, it probably would have been far easier for them to appoint an experienced general manager who had all these whistles and bows and feathers in his hat to come and run the park. But actually, being able to send someone from Norfolk who's got the knowledge and the understanding of what BeWILDerwood is, both as a brand and as a business, I think, especially given everything that's happened this year, it's been so beneficial. We can be able to bring that brand to a brand new audience. And yeah, it's been massively challenging, and it's been an amazing learning curve for me. I've done so many things that I probably wouldn't have been able to do anywhere else. And yeah, that's kind of what makes it fun, isn't it? All those challenges and things. And
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's
where I'm at.
That's where I want to pick up the story. I'm going to come back to this in a minute, because there's a couple of questions I want to speak to you about around that topic of being kind of the poster girl, like you said. I think the more attractions that I speak to, the more I see that the organisations themselves are really keen to bring people on, almost like from a grassroots level. They're really keen to have people that progress and move their careers on through that organisation. So they've had like real hands-on experience of every kind of level of engaging with the guests, like you say, being a Twiggle from that kind of that level there, and then moving up through marketing and management, etc. I think that's a really fantastic thing for attractions to be able to do. But when you mentioned poster girl, one of the things that I've been looking at recently is trying to keep the diversity of the guests that come on to the show quite even. And I find that quite difficult, because there is a bit of it seems to me there's still a bit of a kind of disbalance around men and women in the sector. So I wanted to ask you, do you think that there's a little bit of a lack of women at that senior level in attractions? And is there anything that can be done about that? It seems like BeWILDerwood are doing really great things in terms of moving people through their organisation from promoting inside. But are there any things that you've been involved in that you could see as a real kind of positive benefit to women in the industry?
It's a really interesting question. I don't know if we break the mold in that actually within BeWILDerwood, we are predominantly female managed and run at board level, which perhaps maybe is a different subject and a different conversation, probably for a different day. At board level it's different, and I don't know whether that's reflected elsewhere and whether that's unique or not. But I would say, and from my, obviously, as I said, BeWILDerwood is my attractions life, so my very limited experience, I think either we break the mold or no, actually we don't. I don't see a lack of women in senior leadership roles. I think obviously it's a really big conversation at the moment, and it's a conversation that I need to educate myself further in, because I don't think I understand enough or know enough about women and diversity within leadership. I think it's really important as well to remember that, I guess, in a sense, that the glass ceiling isn't just women. I guess in a way it's anyone who's not straight, male or white, probably. And it's encouraging as you said, I think, the diversity that we have within our society should be reflected within our workplaces and within leadership and at every level. But yeah, it's something that I think I need to go away and do some more work on, and more understanding and more research to kind of be able to speak about it eloquently. But yes, it's definitely something, and I think it's a conversation that is being had, and which is great, and we need more of that. We need more of the gender pay gap reporting and the championing flexible working and all of that kind of thing. But I think it's important that it's not just women. It is anybody. It's making sure that diversity is represented and society is represented.
Absolutely.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, completely.
Then
yeah, it absolutely does. I've been thinking about actually running a panel session on this and kind of bringing that to the forefront of some of the things that we talk about as well. So
yeah, and it would be, I think for me actually, one thing would, because I don't know, from my limited experience, it doesn't seem to me that way. But actually, if that's not the case, then for me it'd be really interesting to speak to other people and find out whether what we're like is reflective of other places and things.
Absolutely. Well, let's carry this conversation on further. But for now, I would like to go back to December 2019. So you've left your life in Norwich. You've moved to Cheshire. It's Christmas time. You've got a young family at home, and you're just about to start, possibly the most exciting part of your career yet so far, and then we get whacked with the coronavirus.
The Rona
comes and smacks us on the arse. Tell us about what's happened, because I think the attraction was due to originally openly was it March time last year?
May the 23rd, 2020. That was the big date. And as Tom's been saying recently, Tom Blofeld, the guy that owns BeWILDerwood, has been saying recently in lots of his interviews and things that I've heard him saying, we couldn't have possibly picked a worse date. And he's so true. May the 23rd, 2020, that was when it was going to be. We, as you rightfully said, so we moved up to Cheshire in December 2019. That was lovely. There I was, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, ready to build a team. We're going to open BeWILDerwood Cheshire. It's going to be wonderful. And it was great. It was great for the first few months. We started building the team. We got the managers in. We got our maintenance guys in. Everything started, progressing and ticking along. We were making all those big, long lists about what we still needed to do, working with a contractor and things, all going for this May the 23rd date. We just announced to the public and to all our wonderful visitors that we were going to open on the 23rd of May 2020. We had all the graphics and things designed. We put the leaflets out to print. And I will always remember, it must have been like the middle of March. Obviously we were all starting to talk about coronavirus by this point. And I noticed, I'm a member of the Visitor Experience Forum on LinkedIn. So I noticed they were doing, I think it was a hack or something they called around COVID-19. So I thought, oh yeah, this will be a nice trip out of the office. I'll get the train down to London and I'll go and meet some other people and we'll talk about this coronavirus thing. And maybe we'll talk about how, we might have to close our attractions for a week or two, and that will be a shame, but it'll be a nice rest for us all. And so I go down on the train, really excited, nice trip out. And I remember sitting in this room, and I think it's Bernard Donahue was I just felt like a balloon being slowly deflated across the course of the morning. And I remember sitting on the train on the way back, typing up my notes and sort of messaging people like, oh Lordy, this is a big deal. Yeah. And I mean, obviously there were elements I was probably over naive and over excited about what we were doing. Quickly after that, I think it was probably the week or so after that, everyone was told to work from home. So we sent our minimal, I think there was probably about 5 or 6 of us in the office by that point. So we sent them home. We kept our maintenance guys on. But then kind of within a week or two of that, it became very apparent very quickly that actually we wouldn't be opening in May. And initially what we decided to delay it until July. And then I think as lockdown progressed and proceeded and there was no end to it, it just, again, very quickly, we didn't have to take long to make the decisions, which was quite a nice thing in a sense. We made decisions quickly, we made the right decisions, and we made sure that we kept the guys informed. But yeah, so very quickly it became apparent that, July actually wouldn't be achievable, because by the time we came back out of lockdown, we'd have to get people back into the office. We'd have to start out from where we left off. So July 2020 then very quickly became spring 2021. But we have opened, so we are now open, which is brilliant. But yeah, it was altogether a rather strange few months for me, especially.
I can imagine how kind of life-changing that was as well, because you've already done a big step in kind of moving to a different area and having to establish yourself there in a personal sense. And then you're establishing yourself in a new role, in a new place, and you're building a new team around you as well. I mean, that must have been pretty horrendous, right? You would have had to have recruited ready for the opening. And then what happens?
Yeah, and I did feel like almost in a sense, like the whole of my last 18 months has felt like a recruitment groundhog day. And it's awful to say that, because it felt like it was never ending. And the poor people who are on the other ends of the sticks, it was far worse for them. They had the worst end of the stick. But yeah, I mean, I kind of, much of last year for me, and also remembering that I was coming into this with a huge amount to learn anyway, and then have, so much of last year was in a nutshell, it was just a masterclass in kind of management skills and techniques that you really wish that you don't ever have to use. So really, unfortunately for us, I had the horrible task of having to let go all those people that we had recruited, because unfortunately the way that the furlough scheme cut off, we just got people in within weeks, so that within weeks of that deadline, so we couldn't furlough anyone, and it was a case of, we need to save this business. There were really worrying points last year. So in about May, I think we had to let the team go. We did keep them on for as long as we could, keep supporting them and things, but we did have to let them go. And then so kind of from May to January last year, it was me and a couple of Boggle builders, so our maintenance team, that we kept on to caretake the site. So thankfully I wasn't completely on my own, and we did keep coming into the office. They obviously had work that they needed to do around the site and things. But yeah, it's a 70-acre site, so it did feel a bit strange with just the three of us kind of rattling around. I did learn some skills in how to use a jigsaw and stuff. So
good life skills to have.
Exactly, something to add on to my CV. But yeah, and for myself, I was really lucky in a sense that once lockdown eased, because we are BeWILDerwood, we are one company. I was able to go back down to Northfolk and help support the guys in Northfolk with their reopening, and then I actually ended up helping them put together their kind of COVID secure lantern parade that they put on for October half term. So that was really nice. For me personally, it was really lovely to actually be able to go back somewhere and feel like I was part of a team, not three people kind of rattling around somewhere. So yeah, and I think I probably would have lost my mind a bit if I didn't manage to do that. But yeah, and I guess in a sense, thinking about the positives there are positives that have come out of it. I managed to spend time on kind of, in a sense, the more paperworky side of stuff. So managing to get all the health and safety things all ticked off and out of the way whilst it was quiet in the summer and you didn't have loads of stuff running around and happening. But yeah, as I said, it felt like Groundhog Day of recruitment. So yeah, 18 months of recruiting people and then letting people go and then re-recruiting people. What was lovely actually though is that we had, I think I was going to try and work out the percentage, but I ran out of time. We had a huge percentage of the people that we let go in May came back.
Oh, that's fabulous.
So obviously we kept them in the loop and things. I quite enjoyed going around taking pictures and being able to send people updates of what was going on around site, and it was so nice. Yeah, we'd obviously recruited a bunch of people who shared the passion for what we were doing, and after everything, for them to say, I want to come back, I still want to work with you, that that was lovely. It was really nice.
So that's testament to how you obviously managed that process in terms of keeping in touch with them and the empathy that you showed them with the situation that you were in.
Yeah, I hope so. It was tough. It was really tough. But yeah, like you say, it's so nice that, they've come back and that actually, now that we have finally opened, that they have all got to be involved in it. I imagine last May, everyone had thoughts of, is this place ever going to open? And to now be sat here, having actually opened it, I think if someone had said to me last July, do you reckon you'll be sat there next April with a park that has opened to resounding success, I wouldn't have confidently been able to say yes. So that's nice.
Wow, yeah, that is really nice. What's it been like? What's the response been like from the general public?
Do you know what? It's been absolutely phenomenal. It's been so amazing to open. For one, the weather was absolutely perfect for the whole week. So obviously, as you can imagine, we are an outdoor attraction, so we are quite weather dependent. There's so much fun to be had in the rain, but people don't often understand that. But yeah, so to have a week of amazing sunshine and really warmish weather was perfect. That's absolutely perfect for us. And then to see just to see people in the park, it was the cherry on top of the cake that everybody loved it, because everybody did love it, which was amazing. But to see people running around the park that you've spent so long working on, and the weirdest thing was, it was seeing people using the park. And I turned and said to someone on day one, I was like, this feels so normal. But yet yesterday I was running around like a headless chicken with a screwdriver putting signs on things, and for the past 3 years, this is what we've been working towards. And all of a sudden you fill it with people and it just felt normal.
Yeah.
And I mean, don't get me wrong, there are plenty of things that we need to work on. And as I always say to the team, for us, it wasn't going to be perfect when we opened it. And if we did feel like it was perfect, then we'd probably done something wrong. So we've got lists and lists of things that we want to, and things that we want to change. But to see visitors playing in the park and enjoying the park, and to see the feedback that we got from the visitors, it was just the best thing, to be honest.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it was. And I think we were kind of mindful, and I was always a bit mindful, that we've moved to a new area. It's quite a niche concept. It's really hard to explain without being able to see what BeWILDerwood is. But to have visitor reviews that kind of are saying things that, like, how amazing the staff are, given that, last Monday was their first day and we were getting reviews saying how amazing this, and to sit there and read that, and things, saying how brilliant the facilities are and how much fun they've had. Yeah, I can't lie, it was brilliant. It was such a relief and just so lovely to kind of, it was great.
What a massive morale boost for the team as well, to have gone through so much in that year, especially for those poor people that have been made redundant and then they've come back and now they're in the thick of it. That must be just music to their ears right now.
Yeah, absolutely. The past couple of weeks before we opened, I think they must think I'm completely mad. We ended up doing these stupid Monday motivational meetings, where we'd all get together at 9 o'clock on a Monday morning, and I'd say something stupid and irritate them all, probably with some silly little motivational saying or something. But one thing that I really believe in, and I have to tell myself to do it as well sometimes, but saying to them in the weeks before, remember when we open to take a step back and just watch and see what people do, and to take a step back and think about everything that you have done, and just think about that impact that's had on everyone else. It's so easy to get lost in what you're doing in the day-to-day and the grind and how many hours you're putting in and how much hard work you are putting in, because everyone has worked phenomenally hard. And it's not just the guys in Cheshire as well, it's the guys in Northfolk too. So, as I said before, we are BeWILDerwood, one team, and that's true. The guys in Norfolk they also reopened on the 12th, but the effort that they also put into helping us get open in Cheshire, even though in a sense, when we had our team up here start, we couldn't travel down to Norfolk and get them to see the site. And that was initially the plan. In a sense, I would induct them into the company and we'd do our Cheshire induction up here. And then the first thing that they would all do would be to go down to Norfolk and to meet their counterparts in Norfolk and see the site in Norfolk and understand what BeWILDerwood is and how it works. And when you're in lockdown, you can't do that. So we had fun trying to think up ways we could get people talking to each other remotely and to get people to understand the brand and things.
How did you do that? That would be interesting, because that's great, isn't it? The fact that you'd been able to send people and kind of shadow them, this is your role in this park, this is what you'll be doing. But how did you do that virtually?
Everyone came into the office and we did put loads of stuff in place to make it COVID secure and things. In a sense, up here, we did our induction like that. Again, I played some really silly motivational games, which I'm sure they probably all hated. We had 2 truths and a lie, and I got them all to send them in advance and found out really interesting things about people, which was quite funny.
We should disclose some of those on the podcast. That'd be better than the unpopular opinion.
Yeah, and then I guess in a sense it was working remotely, so we use quite a lot of Microsoft Teams and things, and making sure that we're checking in and chatting to people and doing it like we're doing now, so face to face over video call. I mean, I a year ago would have never imagined that I would be on a webcam with headsets talking to people, because it was kind of like my worst nightmare, getting people to embrace that. And then I think, we even did silly things as full teams. So I remember we did a show and tell activity or something. We got everyone to bring in something that was personal to them, and then we all stood in front of a camera and talked to each other for half an hour. And I think this year has proven that there is so much that can be done remotely, but I also think it has also proven that there is so much that can't be done remotely. There are bits and pieces that we want to pick up now that we can travel and now that we are open and things. So we will. It's really important, before kind of May half term in the summer, that we get our guys down to Northfolk so they can understand where BeWILDerwood comes from and exactly what it is, because that's going to be so much more beneficial to them than a load of waffle and a load of words from me trying to explain it, because it's really hard to explain.
I still want to pronounce it BeWILDerwood as well. I really want I want to shout the wild bit. I know I pronounced it wrong earlier in the podcast.
Yeah, no, we get people asking. My dad asked this weekend, and I've worked at BeWILDerwood for 9 years. So if my dad can't pick it up in 9 years, then
I'm all right. Let me off.
I'll let you off just this once.
Okay. I mean, it's a phenomenal story. I can't even begin to imagine how tough last year must have been for you, with everything that you've got going on. Not just the effects of the coronavirus and having to not open the attraction, but having moved to a new area as well and suddenly being in lockdown with a young family, and that must have been so overwhelming for you. And I think it's so lovely to hear such an incredibly positive story come from something like that. I wonder if you could share with us, you kind of started off this podcast by saying, I'm going into this new role, and there was a load of things that were still quite kind of new and learning for me. And you've really been haven't you? I mean, if you can cope with last year, you've peaked. You can cope with anything now.
I hope I've not peaked. I hope I just keep going that way.
There's more to come. Okay.
I hope so.
What do you think that's been your kind of biggest professional and personal learning from last year?
I think personally is easier to understand. Obviously, I've had a chance to think about these. On one point of view, on an amusing lighter note, I have learnt personally that I am certainly not a hobbyist. I'm not a person for hobbies. So I love the idea of a hobby, and I go all in and I buy everything I need to start it. So I buy the knitting needles and I buy the wool and I buy a pattern and I'm going to knit something really lovely, and I get 2 days in and I'm like, God, this is boring.
Can you tell us what you've tried? Have you tried knitting? Like what list of things?
I've got a half knitted cardigans at home.
Excellent.
So now, to be honest, with knitting, I did manage to knit Lyra, my daughter, a jumper. So she's 3. So I knitted a 3-year-old's jumper. But then I was like, right, now's the chance to do something for me. I'm going to knit myself a cardigan. And I've knitted like half of a side. So I've done that. We had a sourdough starter for a while.
Excellent. That's a standard coronavirus necessity hobby. Yeah.
Then that went mouldy. Actually, I'd probably say my one true hobby. I've got 2 true hobbies, which are probably reading and running. But reading this year, the reading hobby's kind of turned into a buying books hobby. And I don't read them; they just sit. I've got a really nice pile of books. Yeah. I am trying really hard though, actually, to read more, because that's good for me. What else have I tried? Oh, I can't think of anything else off the top of my head. I've definitely, tried a fair few. And podcasting, I've tried to listen to podcasts, and I listened to a few, and then 6 weeks later, I was like, oh yeah, I was listening to that podcast.
You've been listening to this one. Now that you're a guest on it and all that. Oh God, that's awkward.
No, I had to do my research on this one. So of course, listen to this. What else have I can't think. Lots of things. I'm definitely a really faddy person. Okay. Oh, I probably buy a diary every year and I get as far as writing my address, and then that's about as far as it goes.
But it's good. I think that's a good thing to learn about yourself. Hobbyist, no. There's other things that you can focus your time on.
No, and then I think kind of more seriously in a post-COVID had quite a fair amount of time to reflect and think about myself and things. I think one thing from this year personally that's resonated with me quite a lot is, in a sense, that not comparing your feelings to others, I think, and not trying to rationalize or justify your feelings with others. So, you know, we've been enormously lucky this year that as a family and my friends, you know, we've not suffered enormous emotional or financial suffering. But at the same time, I think you know, we've all had our struggles. I think this year's been difficult for everyone, and difficult for everyone for all sorts of different reasons. And I think it's really easy, and I found it really easy this past year, to kind of try and diminish your own feelings by looking at someone else and saying, well, you're not struggling as much as them, so you're not, it's not okay for you to struggle. And I think it, you know, for myself personally, I've tried really hard, especially in the past few months, to kind of not compare myself to others. And you know, if you're feeling those feelings, you're feeling those feelings. It just because person X has got more going on, or maybe feels different about the same thing, that doesn't diminish your feelings or make your feelings any less feelingy.
But
you know what I mean?
Validity, isn't it? You know,
yeah.
like if someone is having a really, really difficult time, and you can see they're clearly going through it, it doesn't make your feelings of, well, I feel really challenged by the things that I'm going through, and they're minuscule in comparison, but they're still valid. You can it's okay to feel like that.
Yeah. So I think for me, that's the biggest thing for me personally, and I think that's something that, you know, I think I will continue to work on in a sense. I think kind of professionally, as you said, you know, if I was to try and stop and think about what I've learned this year, I don't think I could even scratch the surface. I have learned so much, and it has been such a unique and exciting and you know, and it's been an amazing opportunity. There's so many ways I can turn everything into a positive. You know, all the things that I've had the chance to learn, the chance to do, the chance to jump feet first in and give it a go, you know, and the things that I've been thrown in the deep end and have just had to get on with. You know, the amount of learning I've got out of those challenges, I will forever be grateful for, I think, you know. And I think it's been a massive roller coaster. There's been some really, really high points, like last week, and this week, you know, is amazing. But at the same time, there have also been some really worrying low points at the same time. And I think the one thing that or two things that I kind of came back with when I was thinking about it is, it's learning to adapt, which is something I've never been great at. I've always been a lists person, and I've always been a planner. When I was in the ops role in Northfolk, we always used to kind of jest at me when it got to, so we shut over winter, so we shut from November to February, and everyone used to have a laugh at me. In the first couple of the weeks of the winter, I would literally print out 10 weeks of weekly planners, and I would plan my winter. It didn't always go to plan, but just by doing that exercise, I would sit there and I'd be like, right, okay, on this day I'm going to look at the staffing, and we're going to do this and this, and that's just how my brain works. But I've kind of had to learn this year that when things change, and they change again and they change again, you just have to be able to adapt, and you have to be able to think fast on your feet, and you have to be able to make decisions, and they have to be, you know, sometimes they have to be quick decisions, but if you can justify them and you know, make everyone aware of why those decisions are being made, even if they're tricky ones, I think people appreciate that. So being able to adapt was one. And then I think the other thing that I've learned about myself is that there is nothing I love more than a challenge, and that despite everything that's gone on, there is nothing that beats the feeling of having to work to a hard deadline and getting there and achieving it. And I know, like, we quite often joke, every day is a school day and there's new challenges every day. But for me, I think that's really important. I think it's, you know, I thrive off being able to learn and being able to grow and develop. And I think I've probably done a certain amount of that this year, and I've really enjoyed it.
Good. I think that's a huge positive to take from it, and I completely agree with you. And I think there would be a lot of our listeners, and myself included, that would say that's probably the biggest thing that they've learned about themselves this year as well. What's next then? So what's next for BeWILDerwood Cheshire, and what's the next big challenge that you've got? What exciting things have you got coming up this summer?
I think what's next for BeWILDerwood Cheshire, there's a lot of work to do between now and summer to make BeWILDerwood feel like BeWILDerwood to BeWILDerwood. It's fantastic that the new audience and our new visitors and things love us and get us. That was, as I said before, you know, that was one thing I was mindful of. But I think internally there is so much more that we can do to make BeWILDerwood. So that's going to be, I think, one of our focuses. There is big focus on a lantern parade at the end of the year, which I think will probably be the next big challenge. I know I'm having a wander around with our ops people at some point this week to discuss October, which is great.
It sounds really far away at the moment.
I know.
October, gosh.
Who knows what could happen by then? Let's hope things have settled down a bit more. There's obviously there's thinking forward to the post-COVID world. What happens when we don't have to limit our numbers? How do we deal with that? Do the facilities cope? Does our infrastructure cope? What can we cope with? And if we don't think we can cope with what we're going to get, how can we develop? How can we grow? How can we make it work? What exciting things can we put in next? Where are we going next? There's loads of questions at the moment. And I think, short term, we get through the next few weeks, and then we really can start developing and growing and thinking about kind of what comes next.
Well, maybe you can come back on in a year from now and share the next installment of Hannah's career progression and crazy life that's going on up in Cheshire. That'd be awesome.
What's Hannah doing now? Oh dear.
Okay, well, look, we're at the end of the interview, but there is one last question that I always ask all of our guests, and it is a book that you love, hopefully that you've read and isn't sitting in that lovely stack that's next to your bed right now. But would you have a book that you'd recommend to our audience?
I've been greedy and I've got 2. I hope that's okay.
Oh, you know what? People do this all the time. It blows my marketing budget consistently. But
so sorry.
You go for it.
You'd probably be able to pick at least one of them up fairly cheaply. The first one you might not even need to buy because it's a really popular one and most of your listeners will probably be familiar with it. But for me this year, it's been a really important one, I think. The first one is The Boy, the Mole, the Fox and the Horse by Charlie Mackesy.
Great book.
It's not a leadership book. It's not anything fancy like that. It's not going to tell you how to get 1 million visitors in your visitor attraction. But I found it so useful this year for putting things into perspective. And this will get a bit personal anyway, but the few days I did work from home this year, my husband would pick out the book and set it out on a page on my desk each morning. And I'd be like, yeah, I can do this.
That's lovely.
And like something different to read, There's also, I did want to mention, there's a really lovely audio version of it that I think they put on Radio 4 over Christmas, which I really enjoyed. So that's a really nice other way to listen to it. And then the other one, so this one, I hope you'll laugh at this, otherwise you'll just think I'm really weird.
Is it the Spice Girls annual?
No, I'm afraid not. It's not Bewitched either. This is one that I panic bought when you asked me to come onto this podcast, because I was like, oh God, I'm on a podcast with all these attractions professionals, and there I am, like, hello, I'm Hannah, and I work at BeWILDerwood. So I was like, what book can I recommend? Oh my goodness, nothing was highbrow enough or anything. So I did some research, and I bought an anthology of speeches called She Speaks, and it's put together by Yvette Cooper, and it's basically, I've got it sat next to me actually so I can remember what it says, but it kind of, its tagline is women's speeches that change the world, and all it is as you know, it's an anthology of famous women's speeches, but I've taken to I read it at breakfast when I feel like I need a kick up the arse for that day. So I pick a page at random, and what's really nice is that there's no agenda behind it, so you've got people from completely different walks of life, but just copies of their powerful speeches, and I found it hugely inspirational. I think at times it's quite moving, and I just think it demonstrates really succinctly the power of words. So that one.
What a fantastic book. I've never heard of that book either. I think that's one that I'm going to have to grab a copy of. Look at that.
Look at that.
I love it. Okay.
Nice blue colour as well.
I'm glad that you've read that one as well. I think that's really, like, reading it in the morning, that's like a really kind of self-motivating thing to set you up for the day as well, isn't it? Yeah.
And I read that and I think, God, look at what all those amazing women have achieved, and then think, I could do that.
I am heading to BeWILDerwood and I'm going to do the same.
I did threaten to my guys in one Motivational Monday that I'd come in and read one, but thankfully for them, I haven't subjected them to it yet.
Well, to be fair, when we were talking about hobbies earlier, I did actually make my team learn how to do crochet.
Actually, that is another one I've tried. I got stuck when they started talking about magic circles or something. Is that right?
It's really hard, a magic circle.
I
mean, that is a really difficult skill.
I tried to crochet a cactus and it didn't work out too well. So
okay, see, all of my team were Mao at that point as well. So it was an interesting day of me trying to. Well, it was a lunchtime of me trying to teach them how to do that.
One thing I did, I stuck at, I did some macrame. I made a macrame wall hanging, but I've only made one wall hanging and that's it. I've ticked that off now. Don't need to do anymore.
Oh, but it's on the wall. There's the achievement. You don't need to do anymore. Look what you did. I love that. Thank you, Hannah. It's been so lovely to have you on. I've really, really enjoyed this interview, and I genuinely do extend that offer. It would be really great for you to come back maybe a year from now and kind of like let us know what the next stages of what's happened up there and how it's all gone. It would be really good to hear from you.
Thank you. I'd love to come back.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Well, if you, as ever, listeners, if you want to win Hannah's books that she's mentioned today, if you head over to our Twitter account and you retweet this episode announcement with the comment, "I want Hannah's books," then you'll be in a chance of winning them both. Awesome, Hannah. Come back soon and good luck with the rest of the season.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Skip the Queue. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please leave us a 5-star review. It really helps others find us. And remember to follow us on Twitter for your chance to win the books that have been mentioned. Skip the Queue is brought to you by Rubber Cheese, a digital agency that builds remarkable systems and websites for attractions that helps them increase their visitor numbers. You can find show notes and transcriptions from this episode and more over on our website, rubbercheese.com/podcast.